All right, I'll be on. Okay, I just want to share this with you. Okay, let's begin. The Phoenix metro area is experiencing a massive wave of corporate acquisitions across the tech, real estate, and industrial sectors, heavily driving a shift from a low cost desert town into a high cost destination nicknamed Silicon Desert. The North Phoenix semiconductor giants and their suppliers are anchoring the market, led by Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company (TSMC), purchasing 900 acres of state trust land for nearly $200 million, alongside United Integrated Services Corporation, acquiring 29 acres for $41 million to support the factory expansion. Commercial and industrial real estate are seeing similarly massive deals, highlighted by Falcon Eye Ventures buying the Scottsdale Quarter retail and office hub for 641 645 million. U.S. Merchants purchasing a West Valley industrial building for 63.9 million, and Sunbelt Investment Holdings Incorporated acquiring 272 acres in Buckeye for 62.5 million. Meanwhile, multifamily buyers, institutional multifamily buyers and private equity firms like Rise 48 Equity, FSO Capital Partners, Titan Development are aggressively gobbling up local apartment complexes and land for build to rent (BTR), in other words, communities, a growth trend mirrored in local corporate mergers where trucking giant Knight-Swift Transportation has expanded its regional logistics footprint, and telecom provider WiFiber recently acquired Phoenix Internet to scale its network across Arizona. While these specific tech and real estate corporations driving the Phoenix economic boom are not directly connected to Israel, uh, several distinct geopolitical nomenclature and investment threads tie the valley to that country. Geopolitically, TSMC is a Taiwanese firm, yet it operates within a global microchip ecosystem, deeply intertwined with Israel, which serves as a premier international hub for semiconductor design and AI innovation. Confusion also frequently arises due to a name overlap with the Phoenix Holdings, a massive Israeli financial and insurance conglomerate that recently made global headlines when Jared Kushner's Saudi-backed investment firm, I don't think those guys are going to go away. Uh, so when Jared Kushner's Saudi-backed investment firm, Affinity Partners, acquired a major stake in it. Finally, there is direct Israeli involvement in Phoenix commercial property market through entities like Big Shopping Centers USA, a prominent local retail estate developer headquartered in the valley that operates as a direct subsidiary of the publicly traded Israeli parent corporation, Big Shopping Centers Ltd. Subsidiary, yeah, subsidiary, that's how you pronounce that word. This massive influx of global corporate capital directly transforms daily life for average residents by driving up housing costs and changing the local job market. Because institutional private equity firms are aggressively purchasing apartment complexes and land for build to rent communities. Entry level home buyers face a severely restricted supply of starter homes, making home ownership increasingly difficult despite median home prices stabilizing near 604 I'm sorry, $464,000. Furthermore, the intense commercial competition from global giants has pushed Phoenix's overall cost of living roughly 5% above the national average, making everyday goods and services more expensive for the typical household. This rapid development also reshapes the workforce. While specialized professionals benefit from high-paying opportunities, a multi-billion dollar hubs like TSMC or Israeli-backed retail firms, average workers without tech or advanced trade skills find fewer traditional job openings and must adapt to longer commutes as employment hubs shift outwards to expanding valley suburbs like Buckeye and Goodyear. This exact economic transformation is happening in dozens of cities across the United States, heavily concentrated across the Sun Belt and the Midwest. The corporate takeover of local housing markets is pricing out first time homebuyers nationwide, with private equity firms and institutional investors aggressively buying up single family starter homes to turn into permanent rental portfolios. Memphis, Tennessee currently leads the country with corporate investors buying nearly 24% of all available homes, closely followed by Kansas City and St. Louis, Missouri, where investors scoop up over 20% of the inventory. Similarly, Dallas Fort Worth, Texas has become the nation's top target for sprawling build to rent master planned communities, while Atlanta, Georgia, and Charlotte, New Carolina face severe inventory shortages because institutional buyers now own a staggering 13% of their entire local housing markets. Concurrently, Phoenix's transformation into a microchip hub is being mirrored by a broader federal push. That's a government push to bring manufacturing back to the US, creating high tech mega factory booms that completely reshape local economies. Austin, Texas has evolved into a massive tech centric corporate hub with companies spending billions on advanced manufacturing centers. While Relay, Durham, North Carolina is I've never been there. Relay, Durham, North Carolina is seeing global biotechnology and software firms purchase immense tracts of land that rapidly squeeze out traditional jobs. In the Midwest, Columbus, Ohio is experiencing a nearly identical chip boom to Phoenix as Intel constructs a multi-billion-dollar semiconductor mega site, driving a surge in high-tech related jobs. An influx of out-of-state workers and skyrocketing local living costs. Ultimately, as global corporations target these mid-sized regions, local economies detach from historical local wages, meaning the concept of an affordable American city is rapidly disappearing as everyday costs, rent, and property taxes surge across the country. So the idea is that, like, hey, we're going to build these cities that we can't even live in. Let that sink in. This is happening across the country. When transitioning cities lose their traditional affordability, who's going to live in these things, right? Okay, they are no longer built for local working people. Instead, they are being reshaped for high earning out of state transplants, corporate entities, and specialized tech professionals. Coastal hubs like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York have become so prohibitively expensive that higher income remote workers and families are cashing out and moving to the Sun Belt and the Midwest because their money goes much further in places like Phoenix, Dallas, or Columbus. These wealthier newcomers can easily outbid local residents for housing, forcing the market to permanently adjust to corporate level salaries. Simultaneously, these cities are being optimized for Wall Street institutional investors and private equity firms that treat local real estate as a corporate asset class rather than community housing. These firms intentionally build and price properties for high income renters who desire a single family lifestyle but are priced out of buying due to elevated interest rates. Ultimately, the modern city becomes a playground for international tech giants, highly specialized engineers, out of state retirees with deep pockets, and corporate landlords, leaving average service sector, retail, and administrative workers with a difficult choice to either spend a massive percentage of their income just to stay or relocate further outward to the expanding fringes of the metropolitan area. Historically, when mid sized American cities undergo this rapid corporate transformation, the economic trajectory ultimately winds up in one of three realistic end game scenarios. The most prominent being the complete economic polarization of the metro area. High earning tech workers, corporate executives, and wealthy transplants permanently dominate the urban centers and desirable suburbs, while the essential workforce, including teachers, first responders, and service employees, are priced out entirely. This forces the local working class into extreme outer regions, creating grueling multi-hour super commutes and severe labor shortages for everyday urban businesses because regular employees can no longer afford to live anywhere near their workplaces. Simultaneously, if Wall Street private equity firms continue to aggressively outbid industrial home buyers, the ultimate destination is a systemic, permanent shift away from the traditional American dream of home ownership toward a nation of permanent renters. Are you still feeling like a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, people? Sprawling neighborhoods will increasingly be controlled by corporate landlords who dictate rental prices across entire regions, effectively transforming housing from a wealth building asset for families into a perpetual subscription service. Just think about this. What's going on? Over time, this dynamic drains the generational wealth of the average middle class, as a massive percentage of local wages is funneled directly back to the institutional investment firms rather than circulating within the local community economy. So to me, that means that we're not interested in in community anymore. We're going to be a whole bunch of renters. That's what this is saying. Finally, to combat these skyrocketing costs, cities will continue to sprawl outward until they collide with neighboring metropolitan areas, creating massive, continuous urban mega regions. Yeah, made of concrete. Uh, I mean, people who live in the valley, this should register. This should be, you know, a red flag. Okay, so for example, the empty desert. Here is an example for the empty desert between Phoenix and Tucson. Okay, so this is already being bought up for industrial and residential master planning to make these houses from here. I'm in Tempe. From here to uh, Tucson, and all those houses, you're not going to own any of those. People have to rent those. But think about this. So, for example, empty desert between Tucson is already being bought up for the industrial and residential master planning, a trajectory that will eventually merge the two distinct areas into a single massive 120-mile urban corridor. While this continuous geographic expansion temporarily opens up new pockets of slightly cheaper housing. So, and this is how we get fooled. It's like, well, actually, you can start buying, you can. Yeah, that's just like a temporary kind of thing. Slightly cheaper housing on the distant fringes. Here it is. It inevitably strains local water supplies, overburdens highway infrastructure, and permanently alters the climate and geography of the state, which is exactly the point. The temperature, it's going to get hotter. It's going to rise every summer. It's just going to get hotter. All right. Okay. This is concrete desert. Are you kidding me with these houses and stuff? It's all concrete. It's just going to be a baking, scenario for us here. An eerie and prophetic example of this trajectory from the mind of Philip K. Dick is the concept of Con app housing featured in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? That being Blade Runner, by the way, and Ubik, where the classic American dream of a single family home has been completely obliterated by corporate over optimization and synthetic real estate models. Instead of owning property, citizens are funneled into hyper dense corporate owned apartment complexes known as con apps, where they rent highly monitored cubes from unseen institutional landlords who have turned the baseline human need for shelter into a perpetual financial subscription service. This corporate encroachment is pushed to a terrifyingly literal extreme in Ubik, where the appliances inside a Con-app are fully automated capital assets with their own individual paywalls, as illustrated when the protagonist, Joe Chip, finds himself broke and unable to open his own front door because he lacks the spare change required to pay the door's integrated coin slot mechanism. When he attempts to unscrew the lock manually, the door threatens to sue him for property damage and breach of contract, perfectly mirroring the ultimate real world trajectory of corporate home buying by illustrating a dystopia where the middle class owns absolutely nothing. Every mundane aspect of daily domestic life is gatekept by a corporate fee, and families are reduced to mere data points, renting a lifestyle from a handful of global conglomerates. Well, what can I say? Enjoy the rest of your day, man.